at the beginning anyway. Oh, yep, so start now. And okay. Well, I think we're live. We've had a few issues this morning because YouTube, for some reason, has changed everything. We were just about to go live and they've changed the actual complete setup. So let me turn this off. So, Aaron, how are you? I'm just going to switch over. So I've got to go back to the manual switching now. So it'll be switching over. So
doing good. Yeah, if you're just popped in, I'm all screwed up here. Nothing new every week, but this is worse because they stopped the whole. What is that called? Hangouts, Google Hangouts. They completely canceled the program. So when we first started, he's all like, "Hey, they canceled the program." I'm like, "What?" So we've been scrambling around trying to get something to work because we didn't do this last week, and we're really wanting to get talking to you guys and stuff. So we're still here trying to get things going, and hopefully you guys can see us. I got to get that chat out. Oh, there's the chat.
yeah, they can. It's going fine, Aaron. So I think everything's okay there. Just talk, because I'm going to see if I'm on me, whether you're actually on now. So talk now. No, yeah, you're not. So let me see if I can just fix this somehow, because I've got to try and make it so that we can both be heard at the same time. So bear with us, guys, just while we try and work out these issues. Let me switch over to you for a second.
Ellie, funny. Hey, Langston, how you doing? Reading over here at the chat, Langston. Hangouts is 86. Yes, it is. We just found that out because we didn't do this last week. So, and I just got in and got everything set up, and he texts me and says, "Hey, they got rid of Hangouts." So I'm like, "What?" So we've been just like, we're a complete mess right now. And Hangouts was so easy, guys, because once we could hear each other and see each other before you guys did, we pressed go or live, and everything went. So now it's all this manual stuff, and audio might not work great and all that stuff. So hang in there. Hopefully we can get it. They can't hear you? Oh my gosh. Hi, Carl. Ooh, that's hot. Oh my goodness. Now I can hear myself again. Hello, testing. Lee Monk, how you doing? Mike, Ellie, did I miss anybody? Shaver, hopefully I said that right. Donnell, oh, you were way up here. Ellie, I had to scroll up there. It scrolled down on me. How you guys doing? We're just trying to get up and running before we do the actual show. So this was all just like dumped on us. Who else came in here? Carl's in here. Nevik, I don't know how to say that, but how you doing? Glad to have you here. We can only hear the person on screen, it seems. Yeah, it's a bummer, man. They got rid of Google Hangouts. So now we're back to manual stuff. It's just like ridiculous. I don't even know what's in my frame here. Okay. Okay, you guys can see my keyboard. I can hear myself again, David. Okay, my beautiful little cup. Uh-oh, now I'm... Hello, can you guys hear everybody? I'm sweating like a...
So it looks like we can only hear one person at a time. We're just going to have to get by with this for today, and then we'll have to play around with it next time. So when we switch, Aaron, I'll just say over to you, and then you can talk, because no, they won't hear it all. So what we'll do is we'll just, at this stage, Mick's saying Kerry hijacked. So what we'll do is we'll just talk like Aaron. I can hear Aaron, but what we'll do is I'll just say I'm switching over to you, Aaron, and then you can discuss it, and then we'll switch back to me. Obviously, we'll just do it that way. At least we can get a show going on. Because what I wanted to do today was I wanted to have a discussion with Aaron about why he's basically bought a Sony camera, and I'll let him talk about that in a second when I switch over to him. So we can go through that with him, and I wanted to sort of ask him some things about why he did it, what his reasons for doing it, and how it's going to fit into his workflow, seeing that he shoots Fuji. So I thought we'd go through all of that together, and then you can have a discussion on that. And I'll switch over to Aaron in a minute, and he can go through everything that he's got on there as well. So the things, Aaron, before I switch over to you, is if you can go through the reasons that you were thinking about why you'd like to do this. So give the reasons about that. Also, how you think it will fit into your workflow as you've got all of your current Fuji cameras. And then basically just let me know when you're finished and I'll switch back over to me. So I'm switching over to you, Aaron, and you can go ahead.
Yo, everybody. Yeah. So I had Sony a7 III a few months ago. Someone gave me a Fujifilm. I always wanted to try Fujifilm because I had Panasonic, Canon, Nikon, Blackmagic, all the big ones. Sony. I've had other Sony cameras in the past. A lot of people that hasn't followed me for a while didn't know I had the Sony a6000 a while ago, the Sony a7S, the Sony NX5, the Sony VG90. So I'm not new to Sony. I've had Sony for a while, but I never really liked them. I always got rid of them, went back. It wasn't until the Sony a7 III came out that I dropped Panasonic for the last time and went with Sony and fell in love with the Sony a7 III. The only problem I had with that was that little gray focus point that everybody complains about. That's the only thing I had problems with it. So when I got this Fuji, someone gave me a Fuji X-T3. I really enjoyed it, and I really wanted to try Fuji out because it's one of the camera brands I've never used yet. I'm not interested in Leica. They're too expensive, and they don't do what I want. And then Olympus, being Micro Four Thirds, I was always happy with Panasonic. So Fuji was the last cameras to really try out. And when I got that in my hand, I really, really enjoyed it. It felt really nice and good. You know, you got all these dials and all that. Well, for a while, I was testing that along with my Sony a7 III, and the image quality was really close to the Sony a7 III full-frame camera. Not exactly. If you absolutely need the highest quality, full-frame is still the way to go. A medium format above that. And so what happened was I just started getting into, I wanted to get into landscape photography. And you cut me off? It's so hot in here. Yeah, I can hear you over there, David, going like this. You know, I'm like, any minute he's going to cut me off. I know it. So anyways, so Sony a7 III, I loved it. Even when I did my versus Fuji with Sony, I never said I never liked the Sony. I still love it, Sony a7 III. So then I said, I really want to get into landscape photography, and I've been doing tons of jewelry photography. And David asked me, are you ever going to go to medium format? Because medium format, of course, you can have more megapixels because of the bigger sensor. So I really was thinking about doing that in the Fuji line because I like Fuji. But going medium format means it's bigger, it's way slower, it's more expensive. And I'm the type of person who loves small, compact things. I don't like a lot of gear and all that stuff. So then I said, I mean, if you look at your options out there, Sony really is the best camera, in just my opinion, as far as resolution, because the Sony a7R III, which I'm filming this actually for the first time, has 42 megapixels, and you don't need to go to a slow, clunky, heavy, expensive medium format to get more detail. So that's where I was like, yeah, hello, test, talking at the same time, sipping the coffee and talking at the same time. Can you hear both of us at the same time? It's their large format too. Hello, Carl. Okay, nobody's saying anything. Can they hear any of us? Too lazy to Google. Anybody? Can they hear us at all? I don't even see anything. I should have brought a towel. I'm sweating. Can they hear us, David? They're not even saying anything about us. They're just, why are we even on? Hey, we'll just shut our cameras and mics off and watch you guys talk. Oh my gosh, it's so hot in here. Hello, hello, hello. Okay, I had to get a towel because I'm just like so sweaty. So I hear Aaron. We can hear you. I can just hear you, Aaron. Can you hear Aaron? David? No. Okay, so yeah, they just can hear me apparently, David. We can hear Aaron. Okay, so to make a really long story longer now, the Sony a7 III, I liked it, got the Fuji, fell in love with it, wanted to get more megapixels for landscapes, because in landscapes, 24 megapixels, it's good enough if that's what you want, but so many landscape photos I've been seeing have been cropped, not because they're trying to get more to fix a bad composition or to get closer to something, but just to give it an artistic crop, like a 16:9 or square. And before this whole Google Hangout thing crashed, I wanted to share my screen with you to show you that I took the different crops from a 24 megapixel and showed how many megapixels those become once you start cropping to the different format. And well, I guess I don't know if I can find it. If I can just find it in 2 seconds, I'll talk about it. Which is, oh, here. You're not going to see this, guys, but once I take a 24 megapixel image, I'm hearing dings all over the place. What is that? Oh, I'm getting, it is, but it's not on there. So I'll just tell you guys, I'll be doing a review on all this. So on my YouTube channel, I'll be showing this. But anyways, if you crop it to a really cool 1:1, it comes out to be in 16 megapixels, which is not that bad, but I really want to start getting into printing and all that stuff. So I really started thinking I would like to have a medium format to be able to be a little more room to crop. Also, not medium format, the Sony's 42 megapixel camera, or medium format, whatever. And what it come down to is that the 42 megapixel Sony, it's still fast. The autofocus is better than Fuji. Everything's fast about it, other than, compared to a medium format. So hands down, it's the Sony's, I think, the best way to go. And that's why I got the Sony a7R III. It's just because I'm not going to go medium format for more megapixels, where the Sony can blow it away probably in well, maybe not, but good enough for me. But the way I shoot and all the different genre of photography I shoot, the Sony a7R III is probably the best out there for me. And you've heard that the Sony a7R IV came out, but for that's going to be too expensive for my budget, and it just might be too many megapixels. We'd have to see, but the prices on the Sony a7R III has gone so low, and I got it for such a good price. It was just like, there's just no reason not to get it at this point. So that's why I got the Sony a7R III. I actually love the Sony a7 III. The Sony a7R III feels the same, except it actually has, of course, more megapixels, and the EVF is even better. The eye autofocus feels the same. And compared to the Fuji, here's where my dilemma came. Is last weekend I shot a wedding on the Fuji X-H1, which Gerald posted a video by someone saying they will not buy the X-T3, going from Canon to an X-T3, because the ergonomics. And I completely agree with him, where the button is right on top and there's not much of a grip. But the main thing is you had to stretch your finger up here to get that, and doing that for 8 to 10 hours, taking 1,500 to 2,000 photos, ooh, yeah, you're going to feel it. So a lot of people who have the X-T3 said it's not that bad. Most of those people are just kind of walking around and, just taking shots here and there. But when you're at an event or a wedding and you're taking 2,000 photos, that can get annoying. So anyways, I took the X-T3, and just the eye autofocus wasn't as assuring as my Sony a7 III. And that was kind of like, oh, I kind of missed that. So I did one wedding with this. The next weekend, which was just a couple days ago, I took the Sony a7R III, and it's a big difference, that eye autofocus. When you're doing just slow portraitures, they feel the same, I noticed it's a little slower, the Fuji, but it was hitting it. I didn't have much of an issue. When the person gets further away, you start having issues, so I had to revert to single point. The Sony a7R III, man, it just like nails it. Like, it feels like all the time. So for me, the Sony a7R III is probably going to be my go-to lens for weddings, because it's just so much faster and just feels more reliable when you're doing that. You get more keepers. So that's basically it. Why I went to Sony a7R III is for megapixels to do jewelry photography and landscapes. And I always wanted to get that photo, a full body shot. When you're going, I've said this before on the show, you have a full body shot of somebody. I don't hear nothing. Everything sounds good over here. Can you hear me? Yeah, well, I can.
Is anyone else hearing that weird noise? It's I don't know what it is. It sounds like a siren. That's weird. I don't know what it is. Well, I'm seeing if anyone says in the live chat, guys. Can you hear a really strange noise, or is that just me? It's Yeah, I think they are. It sounds like a siren going off in my head. It's weird. Yeah, they're saying they can hear it. No, it's birds. I don't know. Now, Aaron, just I'm going to ignore it. I wanted to ask you a couple of questions about this. Now, how do you think you're going to go? Because your two different ergonomics of different cameras. So before I'll tell you when I'm switching over. But do you think that you're going to have some weird issues when you're going from, say, having using the Sony ergonomics, and then you have to go back to the Fuji ergonomics? So I'm switching back to you.
Yeah, that's the big thing here, guys. After doing a wedding with the Fuji camera, and then the very next week, or maybe it skipped a week, I was 4 days in a bridal, what do you call that, show thing. So I'm kind of all screwed up on my timing. And then the very next week or whatever, I used the Sony, and I like the Sony better for weddings. I still love this. Feels so good, like the construction feels so solid. But and Ike just said Sony ergonomics still suck. But let me tell you something. It depends on your hands. And I think, Ike, you're definitely look like bigger guy than I am, and I'm a smaller guy. So the Sony a7 a7R3 or Sony a7 III, they feel the same. Actually, my thumb lands on the shutter speed better than even the XT3. It's not a huge difference, but I really like the Sony. I can just honestly say that. I don't have any issues with this. And I always said that I just wish Sony would at least give me one of those, but they don't. And from what David just said, how am I going to go from one system to the other? Normally, during a wedding, I have a backup, of course, of everything. And my backups are usually in the bag, not far from me, or in the bag that's on me, just in case something malfunctions and you got to grab another camera. So I don't normally bounce back and forth from multiple cameras, even if they were the same. So for me, it's not a big deal. However, I don't like having a lot of gear. So having two different systems means I need two different battery chargers, two different batteries, two different lenses, and all this stuff. And that kind of just annoys my brain. So we'll see how it goes. If I just find that I'm just always grabbing the Sony a7R3 all the time, we'll just have to assess the situation to see what I would do with the Fujis. And that's just an honest truth. When you switch cameras, people start following you because you got the camera that they got. I've always just got the camera that I like, not because someone else wants me to have something or whatever. And I never tried Fuji, and I love the camera. But when you're shooting, the Sony just feels like the eye autofocus just snaps like all the time. It's just like, I was just like, oh my gosh, look at that. And I just shot back-to-back weddings. So there. And the 42 megapixels, this is 24 or 26. No, 24, I believe. XT3 went to 26. I don't know, maybe 26. So we'll just have to see, David. I'm not sure. I hate going back and forth, but during a wedding or any photo shoot, I don't jump back and forth during the shoot anyway. So does that answer your question, David?
Yep, sure does. I'll show you this noise that I'm hearing. I'll put my earphones up to the
mic.
I
don't hear it.
See if you can hear it, guys. Did anyone hear it?
I don't hear nothing.
No, it's weird. It's like a whoom. It's really bizarre. So it was interesting. I'm not surprised you did that, Aaron, though, because I think, to be completely honest, I mean, if the price keeps going down on that a7R3, I might even consider getting it myself to replace the a7R2 that I sold, because if you're starting to get that figure down to 2,000, which I believe it's probably going to be in a couple of months, I think once the a7R4 is released, there's going to be an absolute bucket load of the a7R3s that are sold, and I wouldn't be surprised. They're talking now that the US price may go to $2,000 or even below that in a couple of months. So if it does go about that level, I may be tempted to even get it myself because it's a bargain. Well, I mean, do you think it's a bargain for that price, Aaron?
Yeah, I mean, I got mine for a real good bargain. I won't go into the pricing for what I got it for, but it was really cheap. And for someone who's been wanting to go to more megapixels and being in Fuji, their only option is medium format. That's a lot of money for those, even a used of their cheaper ones. And so maybe if the Sony a7R4 wasn't announced at the same time I was thinking all this, and the a7R3 didn't drop, so I will probably just stay with the Fuji and be like, well, dreams of more megapixels someday, maybe. But since it just dropped, it was like it was a steal, so I just had to go for it. And then one thing I was saying earlier is why one of the other big things I always wanted to do is I would do full body shots of a model, then I would get closer and closer type of things, and sometimes the further shot had a better medium shot because the face or the hair or something went good. And then if you have 24 megapixels on a full body shot to crop into a half, a medium shot, because maybe the medium shots just didn't look as good as the full body shot. With 42 megapixels, you can do that, and you're still going to have 16 megapixels, or depends on how much you crop, of course. I'd have to do the math on that from a exact full body to a medium shot from waist up. You're still going to have lots of megapixels there, and I always kind of wanted that. When I did a runway shoot, I kind of had that. Like I had I forget what lens I had. Oh, the 24-105 on the Sony a7 III. And when they first walked out, even at 105 millimeters, I wasn't quite long enough to get like a full close-up. And if I had that Sony a7R III, man, I could have cropped the rest of that in and had those shots where they come out and they do their first pose before they walk. So, man, a7R III, and as fast as it is, and faster than medium format, yeah, it might just be my go-to camera, but we'll see.
Yeah, the interesting thing is too that I'm laughing because people say I'm on something or whatever. I'm going to turn up this volume and we'll see if we can hear it. Hang on.
Oh.
Did you hear it that time? Yeah, it's weird. It's weird. Yeah, no, it's a real weird sound. The interesting thing too is that I'm starting to wonder too how low this price can go, because if it almost starts to get to the same price as the a7 III, then which camera do you get? It's an interesting sort of thing to say. Well, if they almost get in parity in pricing, well, which one would you go for? And I'd love to know in the chat what people would think about that. Do you think you'd then go for the a7R3 or would you go for the a7 III? And it's interesting because if they do go much below that or around that $2,000, there's not much difference between the a7 III and the a7R3. So it certainly makes it interesting. Yeah, people are saying they heard it. It's weird because it's going in my ear all the time. I don't know what that is because you guys can't hear it obviously now. So it must be something just coming through to the headphones. For some reason, I'm not sure. But that's interesting. I knew Aron would come back. I knew Aron would see the light at the end of the day and come back to the fold, to the team. I was just waiting on it to happen, and it didn't surprise me really at all. But look at the price you're getting the a7R3 now. It really is a bargain. And if you can't afford the a7R4, the a7 III may be more than enough than what you'll ever need. So it's certainly something to consider if you're thinking about you need more resolution than what the a7 III would give you. So I know Brett said have both a7 III and the a7R3, no brainer. So it's interesting to see how this will go. I'm just curious to know how far this will go down. We're still waiting, obviously, to see which are the next cameras that come out for Sony, and I will talk about some of those on Friday's or Thursday's show with you guys, where we can go through all of those together. So apart from that, if you have any questions, obviously about Aron will download this as well and put it on his channel because this goes on his channel next week. But Aron also answers all the questions that get put in as well. So if you have any questions about swapping over. So Aron, how long are you going to sort of give it until you sort of decide, well, because I know that it's incredibly hard to have two systems. I found that when I had the Panasonic GH5 and the Sonys. I think it's going to do your head in using two systems, but what do you think?
Yeah, like I said before, I'm one of those weird people that don't like a lot of gear. I know there's gearheads that like all that, but I just don't. I like having a couple lenses and one camera if I had to, but of course, when you're doing paid stuff, you have to have a backup. And having another Sony camera or another Fuji camera, of course, is great because you just switch the batteries, lenses, and chargers and all that. But now I've got all this stuff, and it just boggles my brain. So I'm not sure how long it will take. The ergonomics of this one feel kind of like a Sony. I mean, you could set it up with the front dial and the back dial to make it like typical type thing. But then, I don't know. It's just one of those weird things that I just don't know. We'll have to find out. If I were to ever, like what I was using on my Sony a7 III as a backup was just an a6000 because it's so small without a lens on that. I can literally stick it in my favorite bag, the 10-liter Peak Design bag, and it just like fits right in there. I don't even feel it in there. So if I was doing a wedding and my Sony a7 III just malfunctioned, I can just get that out, switch lenses on it, or keep a lens on it, or whatever I want. But having, another camera in the bag with other lenses, that's going to be kind of weird, One other thing I wanted to point out, just in case people are interested, David got me on this lens when I had the Sony a7 III. I held on to it, and it is a macro lens, a Sony 30 millimeter 3.5 macro lens. It's for APS-C. Once you put this on a 24 megapixel camera, of course, it becomes with the crop mode. What is that? I don't know, 10 megapixels or something weird like that. But now that you put on the Sony a7R III, it's a 16 megapixel. So I can still use this macro lens, which is amazing, by the way, super sharp. And now I'm getting 16 megapixel images from the same cheap lens that I've had before. So that's another kind of plus, nice and light. But that's
Oh, sorry, I switched over. But what lenses are you going to be using, Aaron, on the a7R III?
Well, right now I was using the lenses I had on the Sony a7 III, which was the Tamron 28-75, the Rokinon 24 millimeter 2.8, and the cheap Sony 50 millimeter f1.8. And because I wanted to see how are those going to resolve on the Sony a7R III. To my surprise, they resolve more, of course, than the Sony a7 III. Not as much as like, a G Master Prime lens, but for me, I just love those lenses. And some people will say, why would you get a Sony a7R III and use those lenses? Well, the images are looking better even on the Sony a7R III than the a7 III with those same lenses. And I'm in love because, like I said, I like light, small, and the size. And those three lenses fit right in this bag, and it's so easy and so light. And that Tamron just, man, it's almost I can't live. When I was on the Fuji, I was kind of missing the Tamron, not necessarily the Sony camera system, but I was missing that lens. So happy to use that for now. I mean, the images are like, looks amazing. Of course, a G Master Prime is going to give you that much better, but right now I'm happy with it. So we'll see.
Yeah, it really is interesting. Like I said, if the money keeps going down, because I did sell my a7R II before the new announcement, so I sort of had an inkling of what might happen. So I did get rid of it. So it might be that I replace that with an a7 R3 if they keep coming down in prices. I think the next camera I'm going to get is obviously going to be hopefully a video one that Sony will announce, but I am certainly keeping a lookout for where the prices go with the a7R III, so that's for sure. All right, that's great. So we'll come to chat at the end, guys. But the next story that I wanted to talk about was actually one. Are you still marking these down on the timeline, Aaron? The next story that we're going to be looking at is actually talking about camera companies are struggling, because I wanted to talk about that because it's really interesting how many of them are actually struggling. We know Canon are really struggling quite badly, and and we know that for the facts by the releases that have been done showing their financials. We also know that Nikon are having problems as well. Really, probably all of them are, but not many people may have known that Sony is also having issues as well. And I wanted to talk about this because it's quite an interesting graph that I'm going to, or financial results that I'm going to show you. So, Aaron, you'll be able to see this if you look at the thing online, the things that I'm talking about. But these are the results, unit sales for last year, 2017, 2018, and the first quarter of 2019. So it's quite interesting if you look at the results. And I wanted to talk to you about this as a whole because it's really quite interesting. But let's look at PlayStation, for instance, first, because I wanted to talk about technology as a whole is suffering. But PlayStations in 2017, they sold 19 million PlayStations, and you can see that quarter by quarter in 2018. At the end of the end of 2018, they sold 17.8 million. So it has dropped a million or so units. And if you look at TVs, it was 12.4 million, and now it's down to 11.3. So again, it's dropping. Digital cameras has gone down from 4.4 million. It's now down to 3.6. So there is certainly a drop in everything that's happening at the moment. And smartphones has had a massive drop on Sony, which was 13.5 million down to 6.5 million. Like that is a huge drop that's sort of happened there. But if we look at it, say digital cameras, you've seen that in 2017, Sony was selling 4.4 million for the year. And if you look at quarter one, they sold 1 million. If you look at quarter one in 2018, they've sold 0.8. So even though they do have things like the a7riii selling and things like that, the sales are still dropping. And this is the interesting thing. So even Sony, if you're looking at these figures, is not immune to what's going on. And particularly their mobile phone would be particularly worrying for them if you look at those figures when they've gone down from 13.5 million to 6.5 million. Over half they've lost in their sales of mobile phones, and it's dropping again. If you look at it, was in quarter one in 2018, it was 2 million, and now it's down to 0.9. So what I'm trying to say here is that I think overall technology is suffering everywhere. So this is showing Sony as a global industry is suffering in nearly every department there. So it's really interesting to see that. I think people just haven't got money, and I think it may be that people at this stage aren't upgrading their technology. They're keeping things longer. And with cameras, are people now starting to think, well, what I've got is good enough and I'm not going to upgrade for a while? Because if you think about it, even with the Sony a7R Mark IV, it's only an incremental upgrade to what the R3 had. I mean, I know that they're saying there's 50 improvements, but there's nothing groundbreaking in that camera apart from you've got, a 60 megapixels and they've put the A9 focusing on there. But there's nothing where you'd look at it and say, wow, that is an unbelievable thing that forces you to upgrade. There's nothing there that would make me think, wow, I've got to upgrade if I have an A7R4. So are people sort of thinking now that what I've got is good enough? There's nothing being released by anyone. Canon obviously is shooting themselves in the foot by, holding features back. Hopefully Nikon's next announcement is going to be good. Canon have now saying they're going to release an 80 megapixel sensor, but is that going to sort of help in the industry as well? But, I'm just starting to think that perhaps because wages haven't gone up, people are hurting financially. Is this the sort of thing that's showing for the whole industry? And I'll cross to you in a second, Aaron, to discuss this, but it's interesting when you looked at that whole thing of Sony as well. So Sony's not immune to these issues either. I'll cross over to you, Aaron. Yep, you can go now. Yep.
how people, like electronics were cool or whatever, but cell phones, like people mentioned, cell phones or like an iPad, I don't think I'll buy another computer again. I do everything on my iPad. So how many other people are doing that as well? I know people who actually have a cell phone with the bigger ones, and they watch movies on that, and they do everything, and they don't have an iPad or anything. So maybe the iPhones or smartphones, whatever you want to call them, are just starting to do everything that all these other cameras, they're all doing it. So maybe you don't feel the need to spend more money that you don't have on something where your phone does it. So I don't know. That might be the thing. Other than that, I have no idea. I think you summed it up better than I could, David.
Yeah, I noticed we're having issues with the auto switching. I know, Dion, Google have just got rid of Hangouts, so it's a problem because now, we're having issues today because we've had to really just pull this up really quickly. They've got rid of Hangouts, which did the auto switching, and now I've got to manually switch. And we're getting used to doing it the old way again, and it's a real pain. So sorry if we're doing this. Also, we weren't going to broadcast today. We thought we'd actually miss it, but we thought, well, look, we'll go on live and just try and get through it, and we'll try and come up with something a little bit better for next week. But yeah, it's the auto switching is the issue because I have to manually switch, and then we can't hear each other talking at the same time at the moment. That's why if Aron talks, I can hear him, but you can't hear him. It's just because we tried to get online, so at least we didn't miss another show of doing it. So yeah, that's the reason why. So you'll see if I switch to Aron now, it should.
Hello.
Yeah, I switched to Aron then and it went over. So it is working, but it's a bit flaky because we're not used to doing it again. So, but you know what? I agree with you, Aron. And I've been using the iPad a little bit this week more and more. And over the next month, I'm going to try and start using it fully to do video editing and other things. And I might even talk about that in my channel. But I'm like you. I can actually see the future is definitely going to go more down that line because I'm astounded with how fast the iPad Pro is. And what it does with like video and stills and things like that, and it's great to use. So I'm agreeing with you. Yeah, I mean I know Aron, you use that iPad all the time, don't you? I'm going to switch back to you.
Megapixel files.
So how are you finding the iPad?
Yeah, even on if you're new and you don't know, I've been using an iPad to do all my photos for about 5 years, maybe 6. In the beginning, it was really rough trying to do raw files. You had to do all this stuff to get it going. But now it's so easy. And I was wondering, is the a7riii 42 megapixel file is going to be, slow on the iPad? Not at all. I notice it's a little bit slower, like when you like crop in or just pinch to zoom real quick, you don't see it. Like you can kind of wait for a few seconds and then you see the detail come. But it's not that slow. I mean, it's pretty fast. And so it's a little slower than a 24 megapixel file, but it just works great with 42 megapixels on an iPad Pro 12 point, whatever point that is on these things. And it just, I don't know if you guys can see that, but it works great. 42 megapixels. Now, 61 megapixels, I'm sure it would probably work, but being that I see a little bit of a slowdown from 24 to 42, if that same type of slowdown is then yet doubled, then it would be doable for like smaller shoots. But if you're doing like lots of like a wedding and trying to do a lot of wedding photos, then it might be a little weird. But on the iPad, you can always click on, I forget the name of it, but you're not using the full res photo. You're using, a smaller res of that. I forget what they call that. You can click the option and then you're not going to get the full resolution out of it, but you really don't need it if you're just doing some quick color gradings and all that on there. In that case, it just works real fast. So yeah, I noticed Ike said, I think he said, Guy says he doesn't need another computer, which I said, but then he finds out the 61 megapixels won't work on the iPad Pro, and that's why I brought it up. 42 megapixels works great on my iPad. So yeah.
So hoping the switching's working. I'm just laughing because of people putting comments. Yeah, I know it's driving us nuts still. I couldn't believe it because this morning we actually I put the thing up live. I went to go live and then it said Hangouts is no longer available. Like I thought, oh no, we sort of had inkling because they mentioned it about a month or so ago, but we didn't expect that they'd do it so quickly, and it was just gone today. But the issue is that it's now just giving this thing called webcam, and you can't add guests on the webcam, or I haven't found any way of doing it. So I can't understand why Google got rid of that, because it was such a good process to be able to switch. And, you know, with the second Aron spoke, it brought him up. When I spoke, it brought me up. Now it's sort of taken it all out. So I would think a lot of people are going to be in for a bit of a shock when they go to do their next live streams and they're realizing that they can't do it anymore. So, yeah, so, you know, I do think it's interesting. So I think with technology, we're reaching a point where we've probably got mass saturation as well, and people just aren't going to upgrade until they see something that really makes them want to upgrade. And it might be like what a lot of people do with iPhones, where they may upgrade every 2 versions. They may do that. Yes, Aron was just saying then that he still has the iPhone 5. You guys can't hear him, but I can. So it's, you know, it's interesting. So I think, like I skipped the a7riii and I thought I might have got the a7R4, but I changed that when it didn't have the 4K 60 in it, and so that sort of held me back a little bit because I thought all the new ones would have had that. Obviously, Sony at the moment are switching, so they may do cameras that have a video line and a stills line. I'm not 100% sure that that's a good idea, but we'll have a discussion about that at another time. But I'm certainly going to get another camera soon. As soon as Sony release something that has 4K 60, I'll probably get that. And then I may, like I said, think about getting the R3 if price keeps coming down to these ridiculous levels where it's hard to sort of say no. So that's sort of all I wanted to do. So if you can, talk about that in the chat down below, because I'd love to know your opinions about that. We will go to the chat later as well, but I'd love to know what you guys think about this. If you think we have reached a point in technology where what we've got isn't now good enough. Like if you've got an a7R3, you know, is it really good enough? I'll just cross to Aron because he wanted to say something.
Yeah, I'm just agreeing with that, and I do think that. That's why I was saying, you know, an iPad Pro, I mean, I just don't need a laptop. I thought about it before, but why? It does everything. The only thing that my iPad Pro doesn't do, well, it doesn't do at all, is After Effects. I can't do special effects and compositing and all that type of stuff on an iPad. I could easily probably edit, well, I did it before. I've had many videos, just YouTube videos. A typical YouTube video, you can edit on there with background music and layovers and stuff like that. But special effects, of course, you're still going to need a computer. I don't do a whole lot of special effects for short films and stuff like that anymore. So, yeah, I think it's just getting good enough. And I think, David, you also led me to an article saying that they're bringing the full version of Photoshop to the iPad. And then in that article, I read, will they ever bring After Effects to the iPad? I'm sure it's going to come sometime because, I mean, why not? They're just, you know, 10 years ago, 11 years ago, we didn't even have an iPhone, and now we have an iPad that does all this. So I'm sure it's going to come. And I think that's just it, David. A new technology has to come out that's just like, wow, that's like amazing. I think for people to really start buying stuff, because now that I got the Sony a7R3, knowing that I loved the Fuji style and I love the Sony a7 III, now I got the 42 megapixels, don't need to go to medium format. I mean, it's going to be hard for me to want another camera, and of course I say that and something new comes out, but 4K 60p, I mean, I do have that in one of my Fujis, so I don't know. I think you're right about that. They're good enough now. Yeah, like David said, leave the comments. We want to see what you guys think about that. Is technology just good enough, and that's why people or the masses aren't upgrading to new stuff?
Well, Manny has just, g'day Manny. Manny has just said, I've been doing a lot of video editing on my iPad Pro, simple edits on LumaFusion, and that's what I've noticed a lot of people are now starting to do. I think people underestimate the power that these latest Mac, what do they call the MacBook? No, what do they call the iPad? I was going blank here. The iPad. I mean, I think a lot of people do underestimate these how fast the Apple chips are. Like really super fast. Like it just amazes me how you can scroll through 4K footage without a blimp going on. And see, and the interesting thing is with iOS 13, you can now add external storage in. So that's why I've bought this. So I bought this little Samsung drive here. I'll take it out and show you how small this is, but it's tiny. So it's this big, like it's tiny, and it goes through USB-C, or you've got other your normal USB leads. But this is a 500 gigabyte hard drive, SSD, so I can plug this into the iMac, put my video files, I keep saying iMac, into the iPad, plug it in, take all the video files into LumaFusion or whatever I'm going to do, and it's just super fast because it's SSD. I'll just switch back to Aaron because he wanted to show Manny something.
Yeah, Manny, I don't know if you're new to our show here. I've actually started watching some of your videos. You're doing really good over there. I love the content you're creating over there. And 5 years ago, I started, went completely to the iPad for photo editing, and since this thing came out, the pencil, I mean, dude, it's like having a Wacom. Well, I have LumaFusion open here showing you that because I use that too. But using this on an iPad Pro is just like using a Wacom tablet on a computer, but I don't need the computer. I mean, I can sit any hotel because me and my wife travel a lot, do photography all over the place, come back. I can sit in the lobby, in bed, and use this, zoom in on stuff, and just do skin retouching. And for that, I use Affinity Photo. You can do, what's that called, David? I can't remember the technique that you use for.
Are you talking about frequency separation?
Frequency separation, yeah. It's so easy. And also, like Manny said, that LumaFusion actually renders my 4K 60p files faster. Not faster than DaVinci Resolve, but faster than all my other editing programs. So, yeah, it's just... Maybe someday you can completely switch over, Manny, to at least photography on that, because it's just Affinity Photo. Check that out. It's just amazing. And 42 megapixels from the Sony a7riii, I have no issues. So, yeah, loving it.
I mean, the other thing too, I think that iOS 13 really changes sort of everything. It really does. And I think everyone is going to be shocked. I put the beta on straight away when it was released, but I think they're going to be shocked at how much more it brings it closer to being a computer, which is amazing. You've got that full file structure now that you can use there and things like that. And I believe that the LumaFusion and programs like that are going to be able to use files directly off the disk. So you could probably, when they update it, you'd be able to put the images on the Samsung drive and then run it directly off that drive. So it's like just using a computer. So I'm really excited about how it's going. But it renders the short testing that I've done. It renders 4K footage in real time. Now that's faster than what my Mac Pro does. It is actually rendering in real time, and that blew me away. I could not believe that it could, you could put all this footage in there and then render in real time. So if your thing was 4 minutes, it would render in just a fraction over that, 4 minutes, 10 seconds, something like that. So super fast. All right, so let's keep going because I want to bring up this next thing, and I'll tell Aaron when I'm going to cross to him. But this next story is: you want to be a better photographer, don't ask what lens you used. Let me just move this over so we can see it. And let me just update that. So what this is about is that it's interesting because I keep seeing online, and in a lot of ways I agree with this, but there's another way of looking at this as well, that people like to learn what other photographers have used. But in a lot of cases, I agree with what this is trying to say, because it's saying it doesn't help you in most things. And this is on Petapixel. I will put the links for this down below. But it's actually talking about how people ask what shutter speed, what aperture you used, and things like that. And what they're saying is here that even if you're there, the light will never be exactly the same as it was for me. So why should you care what my f-stop and shutter speed were, unless you were standing right next to me at that time when you shot this, and what my camera set to is totally valueless to you. And I'll just keep going down because I'll show you some other things that they're actually discussing in this thing, and then we can have a bit of a chat. There's a whole stack of stuff about this, but what it's saying is that basically that a lot of websites force you to put down what you used in your aperture, shutter speed, and everything else. And it's saying in here that rather than asking someone what lens you used, what you should be asking is why they chose that f-stop, or what shutter speed they chose, how they came to that final ISO, because the thought process of how the exposure was arrived at is really the important process to initialize. To know that I dipped a bit further into the ISO as well, so I could have brought enough light to get the depth of field, tells me much more than oh, I shot f16. Now, what they're talking about in this is that if you're there at a certain time, now the lighting, depending on when you're there, then it may be a little bit overcast, it might be cloudy, the light may be stronger, things like that. Every image that you take is completely different, and it's based on what you're looking at that time and what the artist, and I'm talking about what the photographer is trying to shoot at that time, is totally irrelevant to anyone else, because in a way, look, it might give you an understanding of what the photographer was thinking, but it's interesting that the first thing a lot of people ask is, well, what settings did you use? And it really doesn't matter, because like I said, if you were there at a different time of day, if you were there when it was slightly different lighting conditions or something else, the figures that you've used is totally irrelevant, because it won't match what you would have to use on that day to get a similar image. And I think it's a good message to actually say there that what they were saying was that you're better off to ask why did they use those settings, and that may be far more beneficial than just trying to sort of say, well, they're the settings that he used, I'm just going to put those settings into my camera, and then you'll get the exact same result. And it's an interesting thought process, and I thought I'd sort of share it. What do you think, Aaron? Let me just cross over to you, and you can sort of have a think about that as well. I'll cross over to you now. Okay, you're on.
Yeah.
Aaron.
When I first read the article, I kind of disagree as far as someone asking me, like on my YouTube channel, I get asked that all the time, like what camera did you use, what lens did you use, and all this stuff. So I mean, I don't mind people asking. There's never a dumb question. Now, if you're new and let's say I took a picture of a running horse and someone wants to say, what shutter speed did you use? That could be very helpful, because a lot of times I get questions like this on my YouTube channel. Hey, I'm going to be shooting a wedding next week. I'm going to be shooting at this location on a beach. I saw some photos of you doing on the beach. How did you freeze that wave? What shutter speed did you use? So that could be very helpful for someone like that, because they never shot at a beach and they never shot fast crashing waves. So if I tell them, yeah, I used 8,000th of a second, then they go, oh, so that's what it must take to, freeze a wave or a horse or whatever it is. So I think it could be very usable or good information. I was on Instagram the other day and I saw this photo, and I just loved how the lens was rendering the compression. In my mind, I said, I bet you that's the new G Master 135, but I don't know. It might be the 70 to 200 at the 200. And when I was about to ask, I said, oh, let's see what his response will be, because I see some photographers get really rude when or have snobby responses when someone new asks a question like, hey, what lens did you use? And I asked him because I said he'll probably be like, well, it doesn't matter, whatever. But I asked him because I wanted to know, is that 135 compression or is that like 200, because I knew right where the guy shot. And I was wondering, so I just asked him, what lens did you use? Knowing very well that people don't like that, but I didn't care. I wanted to know what lens he used. So it can be helpful, because then you can know, like, ooh, if I shoot there, I just know that tower back there at 135 millimeters isn't quite as close as I would want, so I better take the 200, So I think people can ask all they want. I think it's very helpful. If you're doing like I think I can't show you my screen, but one of those scenes that he had was the sun with the sun stars or whatever they call those coming off. And what if you're new? You don't know that f22 is how you get that. So even though he's there and nobody's going to stand in the same spot and the lighting could be different, well, what if they are there, or they say, hey, I'm going to go shoot a sunset, but I like those starbursts or whatever those are called. How did you, what settings did you use? So if he would have said, oh, I used f22 to get that, thing. So I think it could be very helpful. But then as I read, I understood and understand that a lot of people today, I mean, I did a seminar here in Puerto Rico based, I forget the title of my seminar. I did a whole PowerPoint presentation for this group. And it was basically, the title was Just Show Me the Record Button. It was for video production because so many people just want to know the gear and not how you get the lighting and all this aspects, what ISO and the mind behind it. By the way, this show's called Behind the Photo because we tell you what we use and the mind behind it. So I understand how they're getting, how is just the lens going to help you? Why not ask me why I use that lens? I use that lens because that tower back there I needed to bring forward because of compression. So I understand that. So as I read the article, I kind of understood where he's coming from, but I still think you can learn a lot by just asking simple questions. Like if that lens just rendered, you're like, why does that look so good? I'm a newbie. All I have is a 24-70. How did you get that weird look? Oh, it's called compression, and I used a 135 millimeter lens. Oh, so I understand that. People can ask me questions all the time. I don't get upset. I don't think photographers should get upset when asked questions. New people, they need to know. And that's my state on it. Now, they should say, oh, so you used a 135, and then maybe they should say, why did you do that? Oh, because, So either way, I don't think there's ever a dumb question for new photographers. So that's how I think about it, David.
Cool. That's great. By the way, look at this. I thought I'd show this because...
Someone just gave you a donation.
Yeah, no. Oh, thank you so much, Long Rider. I was about to say that too. Thank you so much for the donation. I really appreciate that. Long Rider's amazing. Here's my new Nikon that I've got. This is the Nikon D8. I think it's the D610. But I've only got this for a review unit. But I want to review this lens. So this is the... let me just take this off. This is the Tamron... How do you get it off? Oh, there we go. This is the Tamron 35 1.4. This is meant to be, this is what they call the SP range of Tamron lenses. This is meant to be the sharpest lens that Tamron have ever produced. So I'm dying to see how the quality is of this lens. Apparently it's superb.
Did you switch to you?
No, I didn't. Hang on. I'm still on you, Aaron. Yeah, I'm still on you. This stupid switching. Yeah, I know. This is it here. So this is the 35 1.4 SP lens. Got the AM/FM switch through here. It's it's not stabilized. I've got two of these. I've got also the 35 to 105 Nikon lens as well. That's Tamron has released as well. It's a 2.8 to f4. This is a 1.4 version. But like I said, this is meant to be Tamron's best lens that they've ever made. So I'm dying to have a look at this to see how this renders and how sharp it is. So stay tuned for that. But boy, did it feel funny when I picked up yesterday. I had to phone Ben up because I couldn't work out how to focus the camera again. There's a small switch on the side here which is a manual focus, and it goes then to automatic focus, and that was turned off onto manual, and I couldn't remember how to do it because it's been so long since I've shot Nikon. But I'm so excited about giving this a go because I'm hoping that this will come to Sony. I may even try and use it with the Nikon adapter because I've still got one, and just see how sharp it renders on my A9 or the a7 III, because I'd be really interested to see how it looks off that. But like I said, it's meant to be Tamron's sharpest ever lens that they've produced. So stay tuned for that review. And like I said, I've got the 35 to 105 Tamron lens as well. So stay tuned for that. But let's open up to a bit of chat, Aaron. So we'll do that for a few minutes. All right, let's have a look. So I'll just go back a little bit. So if you have any questions at the moment, guys, just fire away. But I'm just going to sort of skim through anything that we can see. Early on, we had a lot of issues, obviously, with switching. Let me see if that will switch. Yeah, it has switched. So let's have a look. I like triple 07 has said, just leave the cam on 24/7 so we can pop into David's office at any time. I love it. Nivak said 42 megapixels on the 218 iPad Pro is just fine. Yeah, and I've heard that. I've heard it will handle it. I think it will probably even handle the 60 megapixel files as well. It's that powerful. Yeah, it's incredible. Roscoe said, David, you have to see what cameras come out in 217 versus 218. No big releases for Sony in 218. and mid 2019. With Sony's new releases now, sales will pick up with the full frame cameras. Well, you would certainly hope so, wouldn't you? That if they release. But you know what's going to be the interesting thing? It's going to be interesting to see how well the Sony a7R4 sells. If they keep putting down the price of the R3, a lot of people may just buy the R3. Like if you're dealing with $2,000 difference, you can buy a G-Master lens for that money. And it's going to be interesting to see where people go on that. What else have we got? Mike said, David, did you hypnotize Aron because he is now a Sony junkie? He had Sony before. What else have we got? Hero said, I'd like to get an iPad, but I think I'm going to get a Surface instead. Hero says, I don't think you can watch torrents on iPads. A7 IV going to be next Sony release. A7 IV, you're thinking? I hope not, but it wouldn't surprise me because no one was expecting the A7R4 either, so you don't know. Photo Miak said, I can see using the iPad for travel for fun, but trying to batch edit weddings on an iPad, I don't see how people get by with those 13-inch MacBooks, let alone 15 inches. Aron, I'm just going to cross to you for a second. Would you even contemplate, say, doing a wedding edit, or would you think about you'd have to do little bits and then do the rest on your computer? I'll switch back to you for a second. Yep, go.
Yeah, I did 2 weddings a couple weeks ago. I don't know who asked that, but I did a wedding with the Fuji system, and then a week later, Ike, how you doing? And then later, I did a wedding on the Sony a7 III, which I'm actually using my iPad to fix. It's easy. If you get your white balance right and you've got your light and you're exposing right, most of my shots are pretty well exposed. I don't see too much difference in exposure. However, and I'm using Lightroom Mobile, but I did notice, it's a good question you brought this up, there was a long list of shots that just were, the white balance wasn't quite right. And for that, I really searched this out. On the iPad Pro, I'm not going to show you guys here, but on the iPad Pro in Lightroom Mobile, you can't do a batch like auto or anything like that, but you can do a batch. Like if you fix the first one, you can copy those settings and then go to the next one, but you can't do the batch like you said. If I had to do that, I'm glad you brought that up, you do have to go to the Lightroom on the desktop, because you can, let's say you just want to do an auto just to get some quick JPEGs for whatever. You can click on the first one, click auto, and then click on copy settings, and then click the next one, and then, do the, what is it called? Shift click, and then they all go. So that feature is not in Lightroom Mobile. So I'm hoping that comes up, but I don't use that all that often for me. But if you're going to do a big batch of color correcting a white balance, or let's say a lot of shots were underexposed in the same area, then yeah, you're going to need a computer for those big batch processes. But I did all my weddings. I've been doing this for 6 years or 5 years on iPad, and I haven't did any on. I don't do any on the computer. So I do all my weddings on that. But for one section of one of the weddings, I did go to the computer to do a big batch because everything was just too orange, and I wasn't about to sit there and copy one over on each one. So yeah, that's one thing. But if you do that a lot, yeah, it's not going to be good on the mobile. But I think they'll change that, since they're going to be coming out with the Photoshop. So I think it's going to change soon.
Yeah, and it is interesting. I mean, it's like I said, and I think because of what you can see now in iOS 13 with how you can use external drives and you can get to file management and things like that, it's going to change. I think the whole system is going to change, and I could just sort of picture what it's going to be like in another year or so. Carl said, most electronic devices are at the point where you could easily get 5 years of use out of it. Desktop computers even longer. Yep, I agree. Let's go down. Photomix says, I'm going to get me an iPad to use as a mobile station, but I will always have a desktop for real stuff. What else have we got? Manny said, the Apple Pencil is amazing. I wish I could switch over to it fully. I mean, it's not much of a deal for me because I use the Wacom tablet anyway, so I'm using this sort of pen all the time. So for me to switch over to the Apple Pencil is nothing. It's basically just the same. Yeah, Aaron just said it's pressure sensitive too, which is cool. Yep. Well, yeah, Carl said, wow, external storage. Yes, you can. So you can use the hard drives and stuff now connected to the iPad, which makes a massive difference. Mike said, David, do you need a firmware update? It's an iPad. Not sure what that means. Too much talk about cameras. Lenses are more important. Not the GM line, but those native Tamrons matters. Yeah, well, look, and it's true. If you want to improve your photography more than anything, I can guarantee you that if you get a better lens, you'll get a way better result than if you upgrade your camera. And that is a definite thing. Aaron's saying he agrees. But, spend money on lenses. Lenses will last you a lifetime. Bodies will be upgraded every couple of years. So you will definitely get a much better outlook on, or your photos will look much better if you get really good quality glass. What else? Langston said, even though he's an Apple hater, he has to admit that the tightness of Apple's integration. Yeah, and I love that. I love the way everything syncs together. They just work fantastic. I tried to go was it Samsung for what? Was it Samsung or Samyang or no Samsung? I mean, for a while with a phone, and it lasted about a month, and I went back to iPhone because I just didn't like it. Yep, Aaron's saying he did the same thing. What else? Andrew says, Manny or anyone use the pad with mirrored connection options, or do you have to have pad screen when using pads? I'm not sure what that means. I know you can connect the new iPad using USB. Or USB-C, and also the HDMI directly to the other monitors, so you can run second monitors. Well, I'm not sure. Aaron's just saying, is he asking if you can use it as a Wacom? You can do that. You actually can do that. There's a way of doing that. There is software that lets you do that. Let me keep going down. Brett said, David, the only thing worries me about the Samsung SSD drive you had is if it fails, very little chance recovering data from it. Not like the older drives. Just be aware of that. Yeah, I know. But being SSDs, I suppose if you drop it, there's a chance that you can damage it. But SSDs are really quite reliable because there's nothing moving in them. So that's one really good part about SSDs. So they're not like hard drives where you drop those and you basically wreck the platter and the little reader would touch the head and then they were gone. SSDs are really quite good.
Of the SD drive and the SD drive fails, then you lose all those edits?
Well, I think he was, Aaron. I think he was talking about that if it fails, yes.
Yeah, well, if you're using Lightroom Mobile, you can have those go to the cloud too at the same time. So I think you'll have the edits in both places.
Yep, I'll just switch back to me. Yeah, otherwise they won't hear you. So, hi, David. No, yeah, they just got the notifications are a bit strange. But guys, notifications today would have been bad because we only put a notification up 5 minutes before the live show came on because we were having so much trouble with the Google stopping Hangouts. So it did cause some real issues for us. What else have we got? Nivak said the excitement comes from the performance at this size. Carrying a high-end laptop, mouse and charger on a trip versus the iPad pencil and small charger is a really big deal. Well, you can talk about that, Aaron. How good is the size aspect?
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, let me show you this. Just to show you guys how amazing an iPad is. This is an iPad Air 2. It's several years old now. I don't know how long I got this. At least 4 years or 3 years, 4 years maybe. I can actually edit the 42 megapixel files on this thing, which is amazing. So you can imagine that the iPad Pro is even faster. And as far as the size, I mean, I have this on, which makes it even bulkier, but this gives me the whole keyboard because, like I said, I don't use a computer or laptops. And I mean, the size of this is so small that if you do not have, I always bring out my favorite bag, this iPad Pro 12 point, I don't know what the point difference is on the end of that, but without this case on it, just the iPad itself will literally fit right in the back of this 10-liter Peak Design bag, and that's what I take. And I mean, that is just so small. I mean, my camera, because I like small stuff, I have like at least 3 prime lenses with me, along with my Tamron 28 to 75.
And cellular, Aaron.
Say what?
And you have cellular as well. You can connect to the
Yeah.
internet.
You can connect to the internet. All of that can fit in this bag, for crying out loud. So, I mean, like that person said, I don't remember who said it, with the laptop and a mouse and all that stuff. It all fits in this bag. So I can do all my photography literally from this. Naturally, when I do a wedding, I have another bag with backups. But if I'm just doing smaller photo shoots, it all fits in a bag. And later we'll talk about this on my webpage, on my YouTube channel, how this little thing makes the whole thing even smaller, which is amazing.
Yeah, it's really, I mean, it is, it's certainly, I've loved using it since I've got mine. Like I was saying to Aaron when he was talking, that you've also got the cellular advantage as well, so you can connect to the mobile network and do data things and all that while you're traveling as well. I mean, I know you can do that with a laptop if you say get wireless or something in an area, or you use your phone to call for a hotspot or something like that, but it's built all into the iPads. I think the main thing that I've been so blown away by is, like I said, the processor in these new these iPads are outstanding, and it's rendering faster than my Mac Pro, and I can't believe that it works that fast. It really is amazing when you look at it.
Programs aren't like you don't have to like install programs like you used to. They're kind of like, I forget what that code is called, but the code is just so easy that everything works so great.
Let me switch back to me. What else? No, that's all right, because if you're saying something, I'll just switch to you. Mark said, by the way, Logitech make an iPad pencil. It's called the Crayon and is much cheaper. Yeah, I've seen that too. And then Mark said that's an expensive stand. Let me switch back to you, Aaron. What is that stand? Show me. I want to see it.
The case thing I have?
Yeah, no, the stand that you had.
Yeah, this thing. This is a
No,
Logi.
I think it was. Oh, I think it was talking about that light stand that you had. I think.
Let's see what he's talking about, and we'll
Yeah,
answer it.
Let me just come back. I'll ask him. Mark, what stand were you talking about? Were you talking about the one for the iPad, or were you talking about the one for the light stand that Aaron just showed? Just put it in the chat, because we'll go back to it. Mike said, but is the iPad Pro better than a MacBook Pro? I never use an iPad, but would be nice if it's great for travel. It just depends really on how much you want to do. Mike, if you're a real power user, you can still do probably more on a MacBook Pro than you can on an iPad. But I think that's changing, particularly with iOS 13 that's coming out. It's getting very closer, a lot closer in how you can use both of them. And I really do believe that now. Like, you had a keyboard, you can now use a mouse on the iPad Pro. You can use external storage. Let me just see, Mark said, yes, the light stand he wants to see, Aaron. So I'll cross back to you.
Yeah, this thing here, I got this in for review. I can't ever see myself on this new setup. So this is all carbon fiber. It's so small. If you guys ever seen, I talk about like I like small and light stuff. So when they sent this to me, I was like, that's right up my alley. I used to use a light stand like this for my behind the scenes. I put my DJI Pocket Osmo, whatever, on this, because it's just so easy to put on this, and because it has a gimbal, I don't need a head and all that. Well, when I use my little 20-liter bag, you can see that you're not going to walk through any doors with that on, and you're going to be bumping people when you're walking down the streets of New York City, right? Well, this little thing, I'm going to make a review on this. So go subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm going to show you how this can withstand wind and all that stuff. I don't know yet because I didn't do it yet. Just got it in. But look at that. Carbon fiber. It's so light. It's
nice and small.
Yeah, it's literally the width of the top here. So, I mean, that thing is just so paper light. And now I use this instead of that big metal thing. It fits in carry-ons. I'm talking too fast. It fits right here, and it's just great. Now, like I said, check out the YouTube channel, because I'm going to go take this out in windy conditions with a flash on here and
Is that
see how
carbon fiber, did you say?
Yeah, it's 100, well, not 100% carbon fiber, but the only metal on this is basically these blue things that you see. And this is all rubber. I don't know what you call those. This is rubber, but it's metal. So it's rubber, carbon fiber, and metal. It's just amazing. And it's this Nissan. I don't know. I don't know if that's going to focus. Is it focusing on that?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it did then.
So if you can read what that says, that's what it is.
How much is it, Aaron?
I don't know. I have to check. I don't
I,
even know. I'm not sure.
I just asked Aaron how much it is there because it looks really interesting. So if you want to see that review anyway, I will stick Aaron's channel underneath the description anyway. So if you want to subscribe to Aaron, and please do, because the show will be on Aaron's channel next week. We take a turn each. So check him out because he'll have that review coming up soon. So did you buy that, Aaron? Was it just sent to you?
No, it was sent to me. I have a few. Every once in a while, I get a company. I got another company I have to deal with too. Like sometimes I get so busy, I forget to tell them to, let's do this. But yeah, they sent it to me. So that's why I said I don't even know anything about it. All I know is it's super light and it fits. I mean, it's perfect for how I travel and shoot and stuff.
Now I want one of those, Aaron. Look at it, and I like those blue bits. The shiny bits are making me want one. And plus it's carbon fiber, which would be fantastic, so it doesn't get so cold in the cold weather. Nice and light, so it sounds like it's going to be a winner. Anyway, so let's keep going down. We haven't got that many more to go. What else are we? I'm DeBrown said, Aaron, Max Tech had a good review on the MacBook versus iPad for video photo. Thanks for that, I'm DeBrown. Johnson City said, I love my iPad Pro. Do all my editing with LumaFusion. Can't wait for the iPad iOS to take advantage of its power. This thing exports so fast. It does. It's nuts. Oh, there you go. Mark said it's about 400, but that'd be Australian. You're talking about Mark there, so it'll obviously be a lot cheaper in the US. So yeah, so they're not a cheap stand. Well, you've got a good deal there of that being sent to you, Aaron, I would say. Well, it will be with the Australian dollar exchange, so it's probably it'll be around about 300 or something, I suppose, or around there. Yeah. Mike said, no, I think the stand in the corner he meant. Yeah, no, he was talking about that stand. Mart said Matt Granger had a similar one on his show. Oh, okay. Harry said carbon fiber magic, make like a zillion dollars on GoFundMe page. Gilbert says I like the look of that stand. So do I, Gilbert. I was looking. Gilbert just contacted me this morning to say that he's just got his gimbal. He's going into video, so excited for gimbal. So Gilbert is now going to start moving and learning in how to do video. So he's got some exciting times coming up. Ariel's Johnson City said when they start putting A12X and the coming A13 and 14 into MacBooks, they will be unstoppable, because that's probably what Apple will end up starting to do. They'll end up putting these A12, 13 chips in the MacBooks because they're that powerful. G'day, Aaron. Good to see you in here. Aaron Ho. Andrew said, I'd love photographers to be at least put general area location a picture was taken. That's my bugbear. I do like to know the lens shutter speed, but less so. So you'd like to say you wish photographers would tell you the location. A lot of photographers I know can get very, very particular or picky about sharing their locations. Have you ever found that, Aaron? I'm going to cross back to you.
About photographers not giving up locations?
Yes.
Yeah, that's kind of a common thing because they don't want to be, they want to have the photo, So as we talked about on our last show, which we skipped last week, but the last week before that, we talked about how many people will show up to or Instagram. Someone will do a photo of a pretty place, and then before like a year goes by, now there's like tons of people there climbing on everything, destroying the whole place, getting in people's shot, stealing crops from the farmers. So I kind of get it why they don't want to say stuff like that. Maybe they don't care about the farmers' crops, but they want to be the only one with that photo. So I guess I understand, but I mean, if someone asked me, I would just tell them, I don't really care myself, because it's like, when you go, you're going to have maybe a different day and maybe you get a better shot. I completely don't care. So if you ever see a photo from me and you want to know where it's at, ask me. I'll tell you right where it's at.
I was just laughing at Aaron patting himself down. He's obviously hot over there today. He said it's 94 in his studio there. It's quite funny. We're like Armageddon here at the moment because we're having a week of ridiculously cold weather. It's 11 degrees Celsius for this week. And that's coal for us. Like there's warnings on the news and everything. Like I'm laughing because I know Gilbert and all that new Americans from up north will be laughing because I don't know what that is in Celsius. It's probably about 50 degrees Celsius or something. But I mean, it's like the end of the world down here. So anyway, we're nearly into spring, so it'll start to warm up very, very quick for us now. What else have we got? Harry says he's just here for the controversy. No controversy going on in here today. Brett says, can't wait to receive my Timber Solace 24L camera bag pack next week. They make nice bags. What else? Gilbert says, I don't share my locations, but I spend a lot of time scouting for them. And that's why I said a lot of people are very protective on their locations. I know that's for sure. 0007 says, Aaron's hair light is getting too hot. I know, I love it. Gary said, or Guy said, the carbon fibre light stand $149.99 and B&H. Is that the Nissan? Well, why is it that much here? That's ridiculous. Geez, we pay a lot in Australia. It's crazy. $149.99, so $150. No. How can it be $400 in Australia? That's just ridiculous. Aaron Ho said, Aaron is more than just hot. Woohoo. What else have we got? Nivak said it'll be a lot less than 11C when you visit the US in winter. Yeah, I know, I'm probably going to have to get used to that, aren't I? But LA should be reasonably mild, isn't it? They don't really have that bad a winter, or Vegas, do they? We're getting 100 Fahrenheit in the US, 0007 said. Robin said, now that the Hangouts Live is gone, what's the best way to have a shared meeting streaming live? Well, we will let you know because we at the moment I'm using Wirecast. And again, we've been fumbling all over the place today because we just did this at the spur of the moment so we didn't miss another show. But it certainly is a lot more awkward because we can't switch automatically and I have to remember to switch to Aron and, and stuff like that. So it becomes a pain and we can't both get voices on. We can do it. I've just got to set it up again so that we can get both voices heard at the same time. So, yeah, when we come back next time, we'll have it all organised. Aron next week will be OBS that he'll be using on his channel. So stay tuned for that. And that's it, guys. All right, so I'll let Aron sign off in a second. But apart from that, stay tuned for some reviews I've got coming up. I have got some really interesting ones. I've also got a couple that I can't talk about at the moment because I'm under NDA. But I will talk about those in the coming days. It's going to be fantastic when I can talk about those. I have got these, like I said, the lenses that I'm going to review for Tamron. I'm really excited about reviewing those, even though they're Nikon. I'm still excited about trying those lenses out, particularly that 35 1.4 because it's meant to be amazing, and also that portrait lens, the 35 to 105. So stay tuned for those reviews as well. I'm going to cross to you, Aron. So what have you got? Oh, yes, I'll just show that. Let me bring one up. Let me just open up another. You just talk for a second and tell me what you're going to do, Aron, in the coming days, and I'll just get that up.
Yeah, so basically I'll be doing probably more of a comparison, why I not switched, but why I got the Sony a7riii, even though I laid down everything pretty much here, but I got to do that on my channel and put a little more content to that. So stay tuned for that. And then this thing here that the company sent me to review, I'm going to review it. I don't even know if it's good yet, so don't go out and get it because I didn't even try it yet. So I'm going to take it out. Probably me and my wife will do a photo shoot or something. I want to take it in some wind too. Probably not with a. I'm going to find a beach that's really windy. I know where to go. See how it works on that, and I'm also going to see how it works on my behind the scenes using my Osmo Pocket, which I used to use that big heavy one before. And if this thing, withstands the wind, or it's not anything worse than those big ones and it just works, then I think it'll be a good keeper. So stay tuned to that. That's the two videos that will be coming up quite soon. Okay, David.
All right, so I'll show you that just before we go. Don't forget, I'll be live Friday, Thursday, your time in the US and Europe for the Sony Alpha rumors and news. So that will be on Thursday. Let me just bring this up. So I'll just show you this quickly. The Photography Videography School. Please join it if you haven't joined it. We're over 5,121 members now, so it's going amazingly well. Just make sure that you do put the ampersand like you see up there, which is Photography and Videography School. You know, we talk about everything on here, like I'm always posting. We've got people sharing their images, sharing their videos that are coming up. We've also got reviews that keep coming up as well. People are sharing their Instagram feeds, their home pages. Like we've got a review here talking about the Sigma 35 1.2 as well, compared to the 35. We've got stacks of stuff in here, guys. So please join us because it's such an amazing site, very positive. If we get any prima donnas that come in that want to start trouble and bag other photographers and, you know, basically are up themselves, they're not going to be part of the group for very, very long at all because they'll get one warning and then they'll be booted out. So please join us because it's a fantastic site and it's definitely an extension of everything that Aron and myself do. Aron's a moderator in this group as well and he's free to post as well. So please join us in that group. So like I said, that's the Photography and Videography School. So next week we will be on Aron's show. Why doesn't that update sometimes? Yeah, next week we'll be on Aron's channel. I'll stick the link for that down below so you'll know where to go for that. Apart from that, everyone, sorry about the glitches we've had today, but at least we've put out a show for you all because we just thought, well, we're not going to miss again, so we just thought we'd go ahead with this anyway, and we had a few glitches, so but at least we've got the show out and we've done what we wanted to do. So please log in next week on Aron's channel. If you haven't subscribed to Aron, please do, because he's got some great things there, and he'll also be now starting to share some of his Sony a7riii results and things like that as well. So apart from that, everyone, I'll just cross to Aron so we can say goodbye, and then I'll cross back to me and we'll finish. Over to you, Aron.
Yeah, guys, thank you so much for coming by. We really appreciate you guys. Me and David both on both of our channels. Sometimes he'll come over to my channel, answer questions, and sometimes I go over to his and all that stuff. So we really thank you guys for being here. Without you, it would be very boring because we love to chat and get all the questions. If you didn't get your question answered in the live chat, then go ahead and leave it in the comment section below, because then we can go through those in the next day or so and answer those. And yeah, give this video a thumbs up before you head on out because it really helps this video. And subscribe to my channel, subscribe to David, and thank you for stopping by. See you next week, and thanks. Bye, guys.
So we'll catch you later, everyone. Have a great day, and we'll see you all soon on the next videos. Bye for now.